Hey YouTube, what is up? I went to PAX East this last weekend, and boy oh boy did I enjoy myself. Whilst I was there, they had demos for the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift, so I was able to try both out. And the big difference with this one is the Oculus Rift, they had the touch controllers. They had Oculus Touch there as a demo. So I was able to try out the touch controllers for the first time, and it still hasn't come out yet. I think they're still pre-production. So it was actually a lot of people's first experience with the Oculus Touch. Basically, if you don't know what it is, the Oculus Touch is the motion controllers for the Oculus Rift, like how the HTC Vive has its motion controllers. It's basically the Oculus equivalent. I was able to demo my heart out, and by that I mean I was able to do the Oculus demo twice, and I was able to do the Vive demo once. The line for the Vive was a lot bigger than the line for the Oculus. It was a combined line, so basically it was a really long line, just everyone ahead of me kept saying Vive, so I said Oculus and I got to go quicker. I tried the Vive at 10 p.m. on Saturday, and the Oculus Touch I was able to try at 1 and 3 p.m. just because everyone was in line for the Vive and not many people were really gunning for the Oculus. So, first off, in terms of comfort and which sits better on your head, I'm going to say the Oculus Rift wins in both. Because it's lighter, and obviously then it's not as heavy, and the fact that it holds onto your head from the very back. Like basically where your neck connects to the back of your head, that's where the Oculus Rift holds on from. But the Vive, it holds on from the top of your head, almost like a baseball cap. That's the best way to put it. So the Oculus Rift feels a little better on the head. It doesn't feel like it's gonna get sent flying if I look quickly in one direction, where I was really worried about doing that with the Vive, especially because I have a very large head. The Vive actually fit me fine, as did the Oculus, but the Oculus just felt a bit more sturdy and a bit more comfortable. As for the screen door effect, I noticed it way more on the Oculus Rift for some reason than I did on the Vive. I mean, they're very comparable, but maybe it's just the lenses or something like that. I just noticed it a lot more on the Oculus Rift both times I used it when compared to the Vive. Maybe it's the fact that the Vive you kind of move around and you kind of look around a lot more than you do with the Oculus Rift, so maybe that plays into it, but it just seems more apparent on the Oculus Rift. Also, the Oculus for some reason has a giant nose hole in it, and it lets a lot of light into the headset. I don't know why they thought a big hole at the bottom of it was a good idea, but yeah, I don't know. It's just a really big hole in the bottom. It lets a lot of light in. And actually, the field of view was pretty much the same on both headsets, but because the Oculus let light in from the bottom, I was actually able to see like the border around my eyes pretty much. And I think that made it more apparent and it made it less immersive because it wasn't basically black. It was pretty bright because the convention center was lit really well. For motion controllers, I'd say the Vive wins hands down. No questions asked. I tried the Oculus Touch twice, and the Oculus Touch was set up with two cameras to track it and the headset. Basically two of those cameras on a stick that come with the Oculus when you buy it. When I tried Job Simulator with the Oculus, there's a part where you pick up a cartridge and put it into a center console and then pull a lever to start the demo. I dropped the cartridge on accident because the way you grip in the Oculus Touch is pulling triggers on the back. The bottom trigger controls the bottom three fingers and the top trigger controls your pointer finger. The thumbsticks are pressure sensitive, so that if you rest your thumb on the thumbstick, the virtual thumb will then bend. Basically, because I didn't really know how to grab at that point, that was like the first thing I had to grab, so I messed up and dropped it. Being that I dropped the cartridge at the start of the demo, I thought, okay, I'll walk over and pick it up like you would in the HTC Vive, just because you can walk around, bend over, pick things up. It tracks it really well, but I couldn't with the Oculus Touch, because anytime my hands went below like 3 feet to the ground, the Touch lost tracking and my hands flipped the fuck out. And the first time that happened to me, it was actually startling because your brain kind of accepts it as your hands. So when you see your hands just start going crazy and flipping all around the screen, it's a little alarming at that start. That's the best way to put it. I actually stopped the demo and talked to the Oculus Rift employee to like ask him what to do. He's like, "Oh, it's VR. You could just bend over. It's virtual reality. It's so realistic." And I was like, "No, I understand that I should try and bend over." And then I bent over and the hands flipped out again. And he's like, "Oh, okay." So they had to force restart the demo. Like I had to quit to the Oculus home screen and then start the demo again. So I tried to play Job Simulator without dropping anything on the ground, and that was actually pretty tough. And anytime I picked anything up, I mean, the motion wasn't that bad above 3 feet, but occasionally it would still flip out. Like anything I picked up and moved upwards with the Oculus Touch would be basically flung across the room in Job Simulator, which was tough, and then I couldn't like grab it again because it'd be out of my reach. Some things did respawn, but some things didn't. And seeing things go flying across the room and like your hand doing things that you didn't want it to do, doesn't feel all that great. Just for some reason, my brain didn't like it. That's the best way to put it. And the hands had trouble tracking too when they're really close together. So there's a part in Job Simulator where you use a blender, and I put some fruit in it, and I was putting fruit in with one hand and vegetables in with one hand, and I started juicing with the other. And it just flipped out again, and the hands like started switching and stuff. So it was a little weird. They started like kind of like going on top of each other, even though they were supposed to be side by side. So it was weird. But yeah, like anytime they were within like 6 inches of each other, they just didn't work all that well. The Vive, on the other hand, tracked perfectly. I didn't have any problems with it from any height or location within the 6 by 6 foot area I was in. Also, for the Oculus demo, I don't know if I mentioned this in the past, you can't walk around at all. All you do is basically stand on like a circular mat target thing so that you don't move any more than like a foot in any direction. So it's kind of tough. Though I will say the games that don't really require a ton of motion, like walking around or like looking around a bunch, for the Oculus weren't bad. I played a Western gunslinger game called Dead and Buried. I think it's an Oculus exclusive game. And that worked pretty much fine as long as I didn't put my hands close together, like I said before, and as long as I kept them about chest height, which actually works really well for a shooter. So for that game, it wasn't a problem really at all. I didn't have any issues with it, though I didn't have to bend over, I didn't have to move, and all I did was basically aim a gun or two. So I guess, you know, take it at that. If you don't have to move around and you don't need to like look around or wave your hands around too much or put them close together, Oculus doesn't really have any problems. Oh, one last thing I do want to add about the Touch is that basically it has a plastic ring that wraps around your hand, and I think that can be actually pretty uncomfortable for people with larger hands. I have pretty decent sized hands. Like my shoe size is like 14, so you can get like I guess an idea for how big my hands are because I'm a proportional person. And it was a bit tough, to be honest with you, trying to put it on at first. Like I had to almost like crinkle my hand a little bit to get my hand in. It wasn't that bad once I had it on, but I did notice the plastic ring around the back of my hand continuously because it basically rubbed against my knuckles every once in a while. So I was just aware of it. I guess that's the best way to put it. I think the Vive in general has a better ergonomic controller as well. I don't like the fact that the Oculus has thumbsticks. The thumbsticks felt weird to me as well. That didn't seem right on a motion controller. For head tracking, I'd say in 3D space, the Vive definitely has the edge because of room scale. And I don't know. I mean, I didn't have any issues whatsoever, but my mom tried both headsets as well because she went to PAX East with me, and she said that the room scale, the Vive, basically didn't give her any sense of motion sickness or anything like that, but standing in one spot with the Oculus gave her a little bit of an uneasy feeling. I think the fact that you're restricting your motion to, I guess, one small area can lead to a little bit more of the motion sickness feeling, because then you feel like you're kind of trapped or something like that. But I didn't feel it. It was just something she felt. So, you know, that's two different opinions, I guess. Another thing, she asked me why people were sitting in chairs with the Oculus with an Xbox controller when they could be doing the Touch. And I was like, oh, no, that's how it ships. They didn't release the Touch controllers yet, and it only comes with one camera, so it's a seated experience. You can't stand up with it. She goes, so why do people buy it? I was like, oh man. So I mean, she actually asked me like why people don't just buy the Vive if all you can do is sit with an Xbox controller with the other one. She said, what's the difference between looking at a TV? You're gonna be sitting with a controller anyway. Which is pretty fucking funny. In terms of audio, I would say the headphones in the Oculus are better than the ones in the Vive, as the Vive doesn't have headphones. Though technically speaking, there's nothing stopping you from dropping a grand or two on some like Sennheisers and popping them over your ears with the Vive. So I mean, technically speaking, the Vive has the ability to have better headphones, but the Oculus comes with headphones, so therefore it's basically the default win in this category. The headphones really weren't that bad, and they're actually pretty decent sounding for the Oculus Rift, that is, and they're open back, so they give a better sense of room scale than closed back headphones. If you don't know what closed back headphones are, it's basically every headphone ever. Open back headphones are ones that have almost like a grid in them, where it's like it's open on the back side as well. That's the best way to put it. Open back headphones are open on the back. You can actually hear the world around you as well as your music or whatever you're listening to. So that's what open back headphones are. It did get a little in the way because the Oculus demo, basically, I could hear the whole convention center behind me, so it was a little distracting audio-wise to have open back headphones, but if you're in a room by yourself, it's not going to be a problem. Though I've got to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of the fact that they're on-ear headphones and not over-ear headphones. I have, like, very, I guess, rigid ears. I don't know. And on-ear headphones kind of bother me a bit. That's the best way to put it. Like, my ears get, like, tender after wearing on-ear headphones for a while, so I'm just not the biggest fan of them. As it stands right now, I'd say the Vive definitely has the leg up overall. Though the Vive is great, I think the Oculus could catch up. It really can. I don't know about this generation, maybe next generation or next iteration. I guess that's the best way to put it. I think the things that need to change are, one, the headset needs to be not tracked better, but it needs to, I don't know how to say it. It needs to be less obtrusive because of the fact that you have basically a big hole in the bottom. It kind of ruins the illusion that you're in a virtual reality because you can see the headset around you as opposed to just seeing the virtual world. Also, I think the Oculus Touch controllers need to be tracked way better, way better. They need to track like all, full range of motion to the bottom of the floor to as high as I can reach. It needs to be tracked completely. You can't really skimp on hand tracking. That's something that could really mess you up if it goes wrong. Also, I don't like the fact that you have to stand still like a pin sticking out of a map. So they need to add some kind of room scale or walking around, or the ability to, I guess, just move more than like 6 inches in every direction. That's the best way to put it. The Touch definitely has the potential, and the Oculus does as well, but it all depends on how much farther the Oculus company decides to take it. That's the best way to put it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, you can follow me on Twitter @Schwabs, or like my Facebook page. The links to both of those are in the description below. Or if you really liked it, you can click subscribe because it's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Also, don't forget to comment below with questions if you have any for me, or suggestions for how I should make these videos. Thanks again, guys.